I think we're ready to burst at the seams with this one.
We're ready to burst at the chest. What are you doing here, Fede?
Jean-Pierre was like, no, 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 no,
No, no,
no,
no,
no,
no,
no,
no.
no.
So it's a deep dive into Alien Resurrection, and then if
I
we
love
want, and then
deeping
at
and
the
I
end,
love diving.
right, and then at the end we can give like a rating as to where it
We're
fits
gonna
into
birth
our.
our rating. We're gonna birth our rating.
Yeah, we're gonna birth our xenomorph human hybrid rating. For movies to video games, Welcome to Replays It All. Today is a deep dive episode into the polarizing Alien franchise movie, Alien Resurrection.
Whoop
Polarizing.
whoop.
And I never watched this movie front to back, I think my whole life. But when Alien Romulus is coming out, I was like, I gotta watch all the movies, gotta watch Alien Resurrection. And why do we have Daniel the Sangre here? Because he will defend Alien Resurrection to the death.
Yes.
To the death.
Anybody. I will fight my mama for Alien Resurrection. That's what I do.
Worth it.
Yeah, totally
Hear that,
worth
mama?
it.
So yeah, Daniel, you love Alien Resurrection. You don't know how I feel about Alien Resurrection. You kind of do, because I kind of
No.
hinted at one thing the other day. I said that I wanted to watch it again. Why do I want to watch it again? Maybe because I hated it so much the first time I watched it that I needed to rewatch it to get a second viewing, get a second opinion from myself. But I did take some Marie's notes. But first, can you give the people a generalized idea as to why you love Alien Resurrection before I get into the notes and we discuss the pulp the guts of this movie?
On our podcast, I'm one of the ones that we all really love Alien franchise so much, right? So it's always been what magical to all of us. And I think that the Alien franchise is very precious. I think there's very specific things that we look for in the Alien franchise that part one, part two, and part four have, that even part three had to some extent, but lesser, in my opinion, about some of the things that make them so good and so different than the other horror movies, right? Than the other horror franchise movies, I should say. You know, which is like your typical monster movies or slasher movies. There's something different about Alien, and it's setting yourself up with there's got to be horror elements. And then when Aliens came out, it gave it more like a kind of a fun, more funnier tone to it that Alien didn't have, which is why I will defend that Alien is the best movie of the franchise, in my opinion. It's Alien because it's the horror element. Alien 4 felt like Alien Resurrection felt more of a combination. Like it kind of leaned more with aliens to me, is what Resurrection did, but they kind of brought it back to what the basic of the franchise was, which is you're giving us a good collection of characters that we're following that we actually care whether they survive or not. I cared about the ones in Alien Resurrection, and you have to have a strong cast. And it's done by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who I just adore, that director that did Amélie, because he makes even the xenomorphs look beautiful. It's really hard to explain as looking beautiful and gorgeous because it's such an ugly looking design and stuff. But there's something so glistening and beautiful about the monstrosity of that design, and you see it that way. In Aliens, as much as I love Aliens, it's so obviously a guy in an alien suit, right? And then even when you see
Mhm.
Alien, sometimes it's very obvious that you see that in Alien Resurrection, you don't see a guy in a suit. So it goes back to those kind of basics. And then the Ron Perlman character I loved, Winona Ryder I loved. Like it had really good secondary characters. Even when you had the guy that was an Amelie, I don't remember his name, the guy that was in the wheelchair, you feel for some of these characters. Then they gave us so the rules and the checklist for me is the xenomorph has to look menacing. It can't be dumb. It has to pose as a real threat. So I don't like it when they just make it seem really dumb and it's easy to kill. And then you have to give us a good group of characters. You have to have a stylized some shots because the filmmaking still has to be done well. And then you have to give us something new in the movie that we haven't seen to help further expand and add to the lore of the Alien franchise. That's what we got with Alien Resurrection. Do I think it's better than part one and part two? Two? No, I don't. But I don't think it's a piece of crap either. And I really like the movie. It's fun to watch. It's not perfect, but I don't care. They took it seriously. The director helped push it forward. And this is a really long answer that I gave you, but I can't help myself because I'm passionate about the damn franchise. What was your thinking behind it without having watched it and having gone 23 years of your life because you're 23. 23 years of your life having never watched it, but already kind of having somewhat of a preconceived notion because of all the stuff you've heard about it.
I mean, I also love Amelie and Jean-Pierre Jeunet, like doing like I mean, but going into it knowing that I was already there's some things filming wise that I was expecting. I was expecting certain types of shots, which there definitely were a lot of. I was expecting some poetic foreshadowing and plant payoffs. I was expecting beautiful color palette. There's things that I was expecting, some artistry. I wasn't thinking, oh, people hate this movie, so I'm gonna hate it. Like, no, I just because of the director alone and the era it was filmed, I kind of had a thought of what I was gonna see, and
Yes.
I saw what I thought I was gonna see. Let's
Okay.
just put it
And
that.
one thing about Jean-Pierre too is that he makes very quirky characters, right? So
Hmm.
he doesn't
Hmm.
just present you this set of characters and kind of makes them funny. There's certain weird quirks about them that are very unique to them, which in my opinion is good because it makes them memorable. And he does that even for this film too. And there is a French type of way of telling this movie that I just think a lot of Americans are just not used to. And I think the ones that hate Alien Resurrection, in my opinion, are the ones that love Aliens more than Alien and will even try to crap on Alien because there's some fans like that that are speak out of spite, not because they really hate Alien. They love Alien too. They're just so big about Aliens is the one, and it's so obviously the best of the franchise. And I don't think that's true. To me, the menacing, the evilness of these creatures, like the diabolicalness, the fact that we're stripped away and we have very little things, and there's only one of the xenomorphs, so we have to fight, which makes it seem almost bigger and badder. Like that to me is more fun than a bunch of them just getting shot up and blown up to pieces by the Marines. Even though that's still fun to watch, right? But if we
Hmm.
didn't have Alien 1 and it was just Aliens as its own movie, it would have been really fun, but I don't think I would look at the franchise the same.
I'm one of those people that I like Aliens more than Alien because to
Hmm.
me, Aliens, even though it's more fun, I find Aliens more horrifying because there's more stakes to it. And maybe it's like that motherly thing, but I cried in Aliens. I felt really a lot more connected to Ripley in Aliens.
Hmm.
I was more scared, even though it's the feel for Aliens is less horror than Alien. I was more scared and on edge watching Aliens. To me, that's why I put it above Alien because I would watch that one over watching Alien.
All the stuff that you're talking about in terms of aliens with the stakes and everything, you're right about all that. What I mean specifically when I use the term horror is the tone that they film this
Yeah.
movie, right? It's the
Yeah.
tone, it's the horror beats, it's all that stuff. Alien was filmed as a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens was filmed as an action movie. Like the
Mm-hmm.
beats and everything that's on board with that, like the way it's edited and everything, like it was filmed as more of an action movie, not talking about the storyline or the stakes or anything like that. So in this particular case, both things that we're saying are right.
That's why we're here to talk about Alien Resurrection
That's right.
because, oof, I don't even know where to start with it.
So let's just get
Mm-mm.
into your feelings and then we'll go down to
Okay,
the notes, I guess. Right. So that way it's different than Romulus because Romulus we had to go
went through
act
the
by
whole
act by
movie.
act.
Mhm.
Resurrection, I feel like it doesn't start off bad and then middle's very different and ending's different. It's the
No,
same movie all the way through. Either you like it or you
yeah.
don't like
Oh
it.
yeah. Oh yeah, it has an
Okay.
identity full like it has a complete like it knows what it's doing. Alien Resurrection had a idea. It was an idea, it was an image, and it was like this is what I'm going to do with it and you felt it the whole way
Mhm.
through and it pulled it. To me, he pulled it off because let me tell you, this is how I like to explain Alien Resurrection how I feel about it. Okay, I am obsessed with the Halloween franchise. Love it. One of my favorite, well, if not my favorite installment of the Halloween movies. And I'm not saying it's the best movie out of them all. I'm just saying it's my favorite. And to me, Alien Resurrection is the Halloween H2O of the Alien franchise.
So Daniel was
Um,
right. Was Daniel right on this?
oh yeah, I
Yeah, I got another one for us small fan base out there that are pro Alien Resurrection. Because I promise you, we are out there. I'm not the only
Mhm.
one, but out of all the people that I know, I seem to be the only one. Like nobody seems to champion it like I do, but you're one now.
Oh yeah.
Yay!
This movie to me had everything. When you talk about aliens being fun, Alien Resurrection is the funnest out of all of them. I find it like to be one of the most right under Aliens. I would watch Alien Resurrection before I put on Alien, the first one, because I find it so fun and mesmerizing, and it's just so rewatchable. It's just so rewatchable. I love
Marie,
Ripley in it. Yeah.
it is my second most watched Alien movie.
I don't
I watch
blame
it the
you.
most after Aliens. Aliens is the one I've watched the most.
Hmm.
Alien Resurrection is the second one I've watched the most, followed by Alien. I appreciate Alien, is why I say in terms of the better film. It doesn't necessarily mean it's my favorite or the one I watch the most, right? That's not what I mean. I just mean
Hmm.
Alien, I think, is a better film.
Better movie. Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
better movie out of all of them. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying that Alien Resurrection is better than Aliens or Alien. No,
No,
as a
no,
film. But
not at
holy
all.
God, does
It
it
is.
touch every aspect of my being? Um,
Yeah.
when it first starts, right away I was like, okay, this feels so much like The Fifth Element, and they came out the same year. There's like this
Yep.
French
Luc
director
Besson.
sci-fi space vibe,
I
and
love
I was
it.
like, it's so stylized. Like even
Who
the
knows? Who knew we needed French sci-fi? But like I know I love Fifth Element. That's why when I saw this
me
one,
too,
I saw exactly what you said. I love Fifth Element. I watched it so much. So when
me
I saw
too.
this, I'm like, dude, this is Fifth Element here, but you're giving me Xenomorphs. Like, hello, yes, I love this movie.
You can tell when there's French style. And then when they started like
Yes.
showing actual shots and there was filming, there was so many close-ups on the face, like tilted close-ups on the face. I'm like, this is like Amelie, this is Jean,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
Jean-Pierre Jeunet. I was like, I even have a note here, close-up shots, because he's all about capturing like I guess the emotion, blanking out the rest all around you and capturing just the focus on this person, focus what they're going through. I wasn't expecting at all. I had no idea that Brad Dourif, I didn't know he was in the movie. And then he comes up and I'm like, okay, I already know this is going to be so
I saved him on purpose and I didn't tell you because I was like, because the way I didn't know either when I first saw him. When I saw him, I was like, oh my God. And when you see him teasing it, and there's almost like a sexual nature, the way he's looking at it with his mouth and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, yes.
okay.
Yes.
This entire movie um has an extremely
Yes.
erotic sexual tension on like not even just undertone like between Ripley and Winona Ryder's
Yeah.
character,
Ron
even though it's
Perlman
kind
filming for
yeah,
them. Yes.
like it's just very like
Marie,
erotically charged.
you know more than anybody. You cannot have a French film without erotic charges or undertone. It comes with
The
the French
passion.
cinema. I'm
It
sorry.
does.
But you know what? I see that as passion, baby, because that's what it is. And I love it. I love French filmmaking. I don't give a
Mhm,
damn. And it had that undertone, the way that I
mhm.
described the xenomorphs were like, that's how like even the way he was showing them glistening and stuff. There was a
Yeah,
sexy and a beauty that he showed the xenomorphs that we had never seen in this franchise. They were always
mhm.
ugly and disgusting and decaying. Jean-Pierre was like, no, 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 no,
No, no,
no,
no.
no,
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 no.
no. And he came here with his own version of it. Again, you showed me something new and I
You
got it
do.
immediately. He didn't wait till the 1 hour mark to finally show his xenomorphs like the other movies usually did.
Right.
Showed us right from the beginning. I'm like, hell yeah. And you saw how smart they were.
Hey, that was my next note. My next note
Yes.
was you're actually seeing the xenomorphs as intelligent creatures. And to me, I'm like, they're like raptors. They're like raptors communicating with each other, basically plotting. That one of my favorite things about
Sacrificing
this,
each other to
yes.
get
Oh,
out. Like,
oh, they're conspiring. They're like, okay, who's gonna be the one to
yes.
like sacrifice? Okay, we're
Yep.
gonna sacrifice you.
And they
Yeah,
look
I'm
at the
good with
weak
it.
one. They look at the
Yeah,
weaker
yeah,
one and they're like,
yeah.
oh, you're getting
Like,
it. Even he realizes what they're doing. And I'm
yeah,
like,
it's like, okay,
see,
that
he treated the xenomorphs
with respect.
kindly. He took my xenomorphs and he showed them the way that I had see them
Hmm.
as these
Hmm.
intelligent raptor-like creatures that are
Hmm.
constantly evolving and getting smarter and getting better.
That's
That's what he
it.
did.
It's finally you see xenomorphs as being something other than just aliens or just monsters or just like hunters or just going off instinct, because that's one of my main complaints about why I like Predator so much better in Alien versus Predator. I'm like, because he has like xenomorphs are just these animals with instincts, to stay
Correct.
alive. But Predator has a bit of like, wait, we can like strategize and stuff. And then Jean-Pierre finally was like, hey, you know what? We got to make these things intelligent. Like, why are they lasting so long? Like, they got to evolve. And so that scene when they are like basically planning and plotting and communicating, which you like never see, that's one of my favorite scenes in all of Alien franchise because I'm like,
Yes, me
that's the
too.
xenomorphs we need because that's scary.
And
That's so scary.
it happens in the beginning of the movie, Marie. So that's why you know right
Mhm.
away. Again, that's why
They're
I say
smart.
it's so important how these alien movies start because I'm gonna get so much information. And the theme that they all do is that they give you something very new very early. Even Romulus did something like that when we introduced, the Andy character, and we saw that version of the sins. You had to give us something new immediately out the gate within the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, like that first, before, like right around the inciting incident. You have to give us something. And
Mhm.
that's why I say this one introduced it immediately, gave me what I wanted, even the glistening and the teeth coming and all that. Like he took what Alien 3 did, because Alien 3 really amplified the slime and the grease and all the
Mhm.
shine and all that. Jean-Pierre Jeunet is like, oh, we can do that? Give me a bunch of lard and bacon grease. We're gonna grease these mothers
We
up.
gotta lube these up. Gotta lube up
We
the
gotta
xenomorphs.
lube
Come
them
on.
up, lube them
Lube
up.
up
Yeah,
that tiny mouth.
exactly.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah, so that was one of my favorite things about the whole movie, was just how he treated the xenomorphs and how they were portrayed. Also, this to me, one of my notes here is this is the first time, I guess, in an alien movie where I'm like, this feels like it's in the future. This feels like it's futuristic.
Yes.
Because Alien 3 is like so gritty and grimy. You feel like it's not futuristic. It's not in the future like anything has
Mm-hmm.
been we've devolved in all the
Correct.
alien movies. Even
Mm-hmm.
Aliens, Alien, I feel like everything's so like primitive and I mean what they had to work with was also like primitive compared to now. But like I mean this is 1997 and I felt like this was a futuristic in the future movie. And I
Like
was
Fifth
like it's
Element,
good.
right?
Yes!
Right?
That's what I felt.
Yes,
So,
I
but
know.
it's just the whole feel of it and, like, all the experiments and everything that was going on, I'm like, "Fine, yeah, okay, now I feel like I'm actually in the future like I was supposed to with all the other movies," and I didn't feel
Mm.
that. And the graphics were, like, pretty damn good. I mean, the only graphics that I was like, was, of course, like, near the end with the ones, like, crawling up the ladder type thing or
Yeah,
crawling up
yeah,
the rope or
yeah.
crawling up something, but, I mean, how are you supposed to do that? I mean, I
That's
get
what I
it, I get
mean.
it.
You can only do and give a product of what the technology you have at the
The
time,
means,
right?
yeah.
I get it. So that was an intense scene that was needed,
Mhm.
and there's no other way you could have hid that. Like, I
No.
understand. That's why in Alien 3, I'm like, the CGI is so bad. You couldn't really darken up that scene in the tunnels and the sewers. Like, it didn't need to be that bright down there, right? It
No.
didn't need to be. In this one, like, it had to be. So, like, I understood and I can overlook it. It's like, it is what it is
Mhm.
at that point. And it's the one time, like, he really didn't use CGI all that much. He tried to use
Mm-mm.
practical and prosthetics, which I appreciate.
100% forgivable, and also it kind of was like a 90s charm, and it kind of was because of the tone of the movie and how it was
A little
fun, and
cheesy. I had a
and
little
it was comedic,
cheesy.
yeah, it had all that, and kind of lightheartedness, it suited it. I was like, "Okay," like, it's not a movie that's, like, so serious where it's like, "Are you gonna throw in this cheesy ass, like, CG thing?"
Hmm.
And, like, it's like, "Oh, yeah, this it works, it worked, okay? Forgivable,
Just
okay."
like H2O, right? You watch H2O and it's
The
like, look,
mask is so
I know that there's a cheesiness here with it, but it's
Mhm,
okay. Like even the original Scream movie, there's a cheesiness to it,
mhm.
but it's okay. Cheesy doesn't always have to be a bad thing that hurts a movie. It's just so many get it wrong. That's the problem. I don't feel like Alien Resurrection did that. I
Oh,
don't
it
feel they
didn't at
got it
all.
wrong.
It
Yeah.
got to me, it got everything right, but whatever. I mean, we'll argue with people if they want to argue because I think that everything is right. Another thing about this movie was the kills were so
Oh,
good.
good.
So good. That
Yeah.
the dry ice, the frozen guy
Yes.
scene. I was like, what? The guy in the wheelchair and like the acid dripping on him. Now people are gonna be like, I mean, they did a really good job of it in Romulus, but again, took it from Alien Resurrection. So
Not that original.
not the original. There are some other good, like really good gory, like it was like a horror. Okay, this movie was
Yes.
so fun, action, comedy,
Yes.
horror, erotic, it has everything to it. I don't understand the hate. Okay,
Yes. I understand. That's what I'm saying. For those Aliens fans out there, part four was the closest thing you got out of all four movies. Like,
It was
right? I mean,
entertaining.
obviously Aliens. So for them, if Aliens is I want the fun, I want the goofy, I want this, I want that, because you had Bill Paxton in there doing a lot of like really cheesy things in part two,
So,
which I think is funny and quirky, right? I get that. Part four did the exact same stuff that part two was doing. Like, why do you hate that one?
but
You
better.
can't just
You
say
know,
the ending. Like, that's ridiculous to me. It's Ron Perlman was awesome in this movie. I loved him in this movie.
we are gonna get when we get to talking about the ending, we have a lot to say about the ending of this
Yes, we
movie
do.
now, especially
Yes, we
more
do.
than ever. So when we get there, we'll just all the people who hate the ending of Alien Resurrection, we gonna change your mind, I think, or
I think so
if you
too.
allow us, because I mean, yeah, how can
Yes.
we? Okay, another one of my favorite parts of the whole movie was the mutated Ripley on the table. And she's like, kill me, or she's saying something like that, or she
Yeah,
wants
kill
to die.
me.
I thought that was it was mutated Ripley, horrific, loved it. And then I wrote existential. And I don't know if it was just for that one scene.
Mm-hmm.
There was depth to this movie, man. And I mean, if you're if
Yes.
you're if you're just watching it being like, oh, this is cheesy, it's like you're missing a whole other side of Alien
Yes.
Resurrection that is so deep
Yeah.
and so okay, especially at
Existential.
the end.
Yes. So the whole movie is that it's the idea of life and creation and what we are and all this. And
Mhm.
Alien 1 tackled that idea. It wasn't as big as the way Alien Resurrection did because they had more characters and more things to play with, right? Of course, Aliens didn't do that. They just simplified it to man versus monsters essentially, and just annihilating them, eradicating them. Ripley had her own thing about how, Wayland and was trying to use them as as weapons and weaponize them. So there was still ideas there with it, but part four really tackled the idea of life and humans because you even saw the Winona Ryder character, the synth experiencing things like that. You saw even Ripley experiencing that. Like, if I'm still, am I really human or am I not? Am I just a product like
Yes.
this? Even the beginning where they're watching the xenomorphs and how they're replicating and creating them from this thing from a clone of the queen, right? Like the whole idea is layered with all this stuff. So yes, I agree with you, which is why I defend Alien Resurrection so much, because I'm like, you guys are missing a really good movie here because you're so blinded by I don't even know what, like cheesiness. Like, they're giving us a lot of what we do, and they're adding the French filmmaking to this. And I really think maybe there's just a disconnect of a lot of American viewers just not really feeling super comfortable watching foreign films, or if they do, there's maybe like 10 that they've seen, or they kind of limit to what they watch. And there's so many beautiful movies out there and filmmaking out there. If some people can just open up their mind and experiencing new things, because you're not going to get the traditional what you expect. And to me, that's why I love them so much, because my brain is going American style. I'm expecting certain things that when they don't give me that, I think it's fresh, original, and unique, and I freaking dig it. I don't want to call out everything that's going to happen. I don't want to predict every single thing that happens in a movie. I actually hurt movies for doing that because they go so traditional with the route of what they're going. I'm like, I get kind of bored by it sometimes. Sorry, I go off on these
Well,
rants, but
maybe people who don't like the movie don't realize that you got to think like this is a French director. It's gonna be different and not like just like America Marines, game over. Like
yeah,
it's not gonna be like big explosion, like nothing underneath and nothing sleek about it and glistening. The word of the day, glistening. I mean,
glistening. You got to glisten.
you gotta glisten, man. That's why I
You
said
got to
here. I'm like
glisten before you listen.
when you're listening, you're glistening. It's just gotta that's it.
There you go.
That's it. Okay, the next note I had is again with glistening sexy
Groggy.
xenomorphs. And that was that water scene, man.
Yes.
I thought the water scene was so beautiful. I loved seeing the swimming xenomorphs looking graceful. They're all graceful up in there.
Beauty and the Destruction.
Oh, see, yes. And then I love the slow motion bullets in the water. Like that whole scene was just so like a ballet. Like it was just so
It
it
did.
was put together so well. And I just like having different like kind of not terrain, but you know what I mean? It's like adding a different type of element to this movie. It's like putting like, let's add a water scene. Why not? It will look cool, and it did. It was beautiful, and I have a fear of like drowning and stuff, and
Me too.
um,
That
yeah,
touched
and
home.
yeah, so I'm just like, like I watch movies where like people are underwater. I'm like, oh my god, I can't breathe. So it's just yeah, it was scary and it was good, but it was so nice to see like the xenomorph swimming so gracefully in the water. But you're
Hmm.
afraid of them, but they look so beautiful. It's like stunning, and you're like, what?
And here's the thing that's so great, right? Is this is one thing that Freddy used to always do in A Nightmare on Elm Street is that he would play people's fears as a way to get them, right? The xenomorph did that sometimes in this movie, which I loved, which made it like kind of a slasher in a certain way. So even when you see that girl like hyperventilating, about to jump into the water, she was already panicking, and you see the scared in her, and she didn't want to go. And they said, "We have to go. Like you have to swallow that fear." So you see her jumping into the water. So even when you're panicking and you're hyperventilating, you can't get a full breath of air.
No,
So
no.
you're already working and then you're swimming and you're panicking, which means you're swimming faster, which means you actually slow yourself down from swimming. So when you see that whole scene playing out, you're feeling for
Mm,
her. Despite the fact that we don't know too much about her character, it doesn't matter. That's why they say you show versus you don't, show versus tell. We're seeing this and you're feeling for her because you're seeing somebody trying to overcome their fear, and something as simple as the xenomorph just grabbing her ankle and not letting her go. It didn't even have to do anything else. You were like,
mm-mm.
oh my God, my biggest fear is coming right now. Like that whole scene, it's like it always made sense to me that they swam. I always thought that they would, and we never saw it for some reason.
They look, yeah.
Yeah, they look like they would. And that's why I love it, because we're always made to feel and told that the xenomorphs are the perfect killing machine, essentially, which means they should be able to kill in any damn near environment. So if it's in the
Yes.
water and you can't outswim them either, means what is their weakness, Marie? What is their weakness?
Airlocks,
I
that's the
don't
only thing.
exactly, because even Jason can't swim, right? He's fearful of water. These things
Mm,
aren't. So what works on
no.
Jason doesn't even work on them. Like genius. Like you're showing us that this thing's an indestructible monster. You're not just telling us this.
Mhm.
That's what I loved about it, because you saw it adapting and moving, and it's better than we are at swimming, despite
Well,
the
look at
fact that
its
that's not
shape.
even the environment. Yes. So
It's
when you
like
see it go in
aerodynamic.
his, oh my God, and it looked beautiful swimming in the water like
Oh,
that. It was
I loved
swimming
it.
like a snake in the water almost, like really
Yes.
weird, huh? I was like, oh my God.
Oh god. Yeah, it was so like fluid and like, ooh, yeah, it was I loved it. This movie had scene after scene after scene after scene after scene, hit. It was
Set
like everything.
pieces.
Yeah,
Yes.
everything. I was just like, "Hey, this seems great. Oh, this seems great. What was this? This is great. This is great." And then there's so much foreshadowing, and like I said, plant payoff, like, you know, showing the girl and the guy, like, whatever, playing with her feet in the beginning, and then it's her foot that is her demise, like, with the xenomorph, and then it shows, the guy with, like, the whatever, would he have dreads or something? The guy
Mm.
in the his
With the two
shooting and
guns.
ricocheting the
Oh
bullets, and
yeah.
that's what he did in the water to blow up something, right? So it's like
Yeah, he did it to
things
hit the yeah.
yeah, there's so many things in this movie where it's like poetry, and then of course the French would do it. Is like, oh, we're gonna put this here, and then later on, it's gonna have some sort of meaning. Something so small
Yes.
as like a girl getting her feet like rubbed and stuff and kissed on or whatever. A guy loved her feet. Is like, oh yeah, one person's fetish is another person's. I don't know, but it's just gonna kill you.
Appetite?
Yeah, it's gonna kill you. Your demise, you
Yeah.
know. So.
Yes. That's what makes it so fun, is like you have the first one and Ridley Scott did his thing with the horror elements of it. Then when James Cameron got his paws on it, he made it so much more action packed and badass and Terminator 2 type feeling. And then when David Fincher touched it with part 3, it became so much like darker and grittier and cold. It felt very cold and very isolated, and like you were left for
Mhm,
dead almost. Like it felt empty and questioning God's existence, which is what they did in Alien 3, right? In part 4, it was they touched this other element of it. So that's what I love so much about the first 4 movies, is that they were so unique and every director felt comfortable and confident to do their own thing on it. And all 4 of them are phenomenal directors. David
mhm,
Fincher is the guy that did Fight Club, for God's sakes. Like
mhm.
Come on. He did Seven. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, this is one of the greatest directors we have. He's phenomenal. And we've been saying that's, in our opinion, that's the weaker of the four. It's done by David Fincher. Like, that's crazy to me, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, like you just have to have an open mind and see how they interpret it as long as they treat it with justice and everything else with it is how I felt. And they gave it, man, they did great. But sorry, go ahead. Next point. I keep going off tangents.
The passion's flowing. Um, the next bit is about the whole ending. I just have here Ripley and it's her inner battle between humanity and animalistic instinct. So like that's
Mhm.
like the whole point of the movie, and anything that Ripley does which would be out of character for Ripley in this movie is forgiven because it's a clone. It's not even really her. Genius, genius.
Yes, genius way to bring her back. And what I love so much about that, right? So we'll speak on it. They cloned her for the to take out the alien baby right from her chest and her stomach, right? Like that's what they wanted. They wanted the queen. So when they cloned her, they expected to just dispose of the body and be like, we don't need it. They're like, well, she's actually recovering pretty good and whatever. So the guy's like, let's just keep her alive then, right? Well, maybe there'll be abuse of something somehow with this. What I thought was so smart about it, though, they could have just left it at that and she was a clone. But the idea that you cloned her with this thing in there, their DNA kind of molded a little bit. So even when you have
Yeah.
the xenomorph, there's still some human elements or DNA in there, which would explain the ending, which is why you birth what it birth. But the even when you see her and her regular blood is acid, and she has some of
Yes.
the characteristics. I thought this is rad, man. Like this is cool. I don't care. Some people are like, we don't need clone Ripley, whatever it is. I'm like, how else are you gonna bring her back? Like, there's literally no else way to bring her back. And when you did, you at least did it in a cool, clever way. And what I love too is that Sigourney Weaver's like, I'm gonna play this very differently. And she
Yeah.
played Ripley very differently. And I love the idea again, if we're talking about like existentialism and what we are and what we're not, she's even wrestling with herself. Well, what am I? Like, I'm
The
clearly
whole
not a
time.
human as well. So should I have to be humane? Do I have to be this and that? And that's why you see a coldness of her almost because she's even wrestling with the idea and the fact that there's part Xeno in her DNA. It's like she's not fully human either. So
Mm-mm.
it's so fascinating. And it's like, is she a mistake? Should she not been here? Is she even her thinking we have to destroy themselves, we have to kill them? It also implies she herself shouldn't be alive either. So
Mhm.
that's deep, man. There's so many deep layers to this movie.
It's so layered, and just seeing that inner conflict, which is a huge like I can never think of words when I'm podcasting. Like one of the like cornerstones of the story of Alien Resurrection is just the inner what is humanity. It's her wrestling with that whole, and but it's at as the movie goes on, it's like she gets more and more human. Like there more and more of her
Yes.
human instincts are coming, and she's like, okay, but then
But
you can't
but
escape
you know
the
why that is
animalistic
too, though?
thing.
Because they had her locked up and they were treated her not like a human, which is
Mm-hmm.
why when she's with the Winona Ryder character and the others,
Mm-hmm.
they're now treating her like a human,
Mm-hmm.
which is why she's starting to, you see her kind of wrestling with that more. So the morality in her is starting to lean more on the humanity side because you have to keep in mind she wasn't treated as such and she was treated like a number.
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating to me. The one thing that kind of bothered me, it wasn't even the ending, okay? The thing that kind of bothered me a little bit, which I really wish they didn't do, was just the whole scene with the basketball. I didn't like that
Mm-hmm.
scene. But here's what's crazy though, is she actually made that shot that she threw behind her head. So like that's
Mm-hmm.
impressive. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like, hey, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna go and dunk it, whatever it is, it's just, like, it felt so 90s kind of like it felt like Jean-Pierre doing something to cater to the American 90s kids. And I'm like, ah man, that felt too corny to me. I actually like the general, the one I don't know the actor's name, but he was a dad in Clueless. Remember how he throws the bomb and he senses it behind him and he
Mm-hmm.
gets hit and there's kind of like a cheesiness there. I didn't
Yeah.
mind that, but I understand that some people didn't like it because it felt very corny where you go and you see him kind of touch his brain. I actually was okay with it. That didn't bother me at all. I liked it, to be honest. That
Mm-hmm.
basketball scene was the only one because I'm like, will they really have a basketball there? And like, that's your way to show us Americans that she's a badass. Like, you couldn't do it in a different way. That was the scene where I'm like, but
I
not
will
that
defend
bad.
it. It was
Okay.
corny as hell. I agree that it was
Yeah.
corny, but I didn't mind it because again, it suited the era to me. But I will defend it only in this way. Do I think there'd be a basketball court on the ship? Yeah, maybe every like, you need to keep morale, you need to have a pastime,
Sure.
peeled American, sure, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why, or maybe it's just like that'd be an easy setup for like a
Yeah.
sport to play. Like, what are you gonna do?
Mhm.
Baseball? You gonna play hockey in there? No, but that's like a sport that people would want to do. And her throwing the basket and like making it was such like a like shut your mouth, like I'm a badass, but also it was her xenomorph instincts, I think, where it's like she
Yeah.
can sense where it
Or
is. She
accurate.
knows
Yeah.
what to do. So it's like
Yeah.
her accuracy and everything. So she can probably be like, oh, I can just do this right now because I have the senses like unlike you human beings. And
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
her way of showing it.
Correct. And it also established that she wasn't really human, right? Because
Yeah.
they all saw that too. And all everyone's like, oh my God, there's something weird about her.
Yeah.
So I understand what the scene did. I'm not
But
mad at what the scene accomplished. I just wish they did it in a different way. That was it. Just because it felt a little too corny. Where that's the scene where I'm like, ugh, like that's the weakness. Where like if somebody wants to sit here and argue with me that the movie sucks, and they mention that scene, I'm like, I can't defend that scene, guys. All
Mhm.
right, you got me.
I did have a note here that just said basketball. And I don't know what I was thinking at the time when I
because I
wrote it.
think because
All it said
I
was
think you felt the
basketball.
same way where it's like, okay, this was the eye roll, right? Because you expected so many eye roll moments the way everybody described this movie. You
Yeah.
thought, oh, this whole movie's corny and cheesy. I'm gonna be eye rolling the whole time.
No.
That water scene, like the
Mm,
water scene with the xenomorph, I'm like, you alien fans are watching this and you telling me this sucks? Like,
no.
what are you? Are we watching the same movie here? Like the opening scene with how they kill the other xenomorph to escape. Like, are we watching the same movie? Because that's not corny to me at all. Like,
No.
it's creating a villain. So they're even watching the human and the way he's sexualizing and the way he's staring at them and stuff like that
Yeah.
feels very zoo-like, right? So even they're
Yeah.
looking at him and you're seeing them developing a hatred for this guy to how they
Yeah.
target and how they get him later. You're almost humanizing. You're feeling bad for the xenomorphs in that instance. And I'm like, I have never seen this.
No.
I love it. The xenomorphs are my baby. I mean, come on, get over here. I'll go pet a little baby xenomorph. Come on. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just loved it. It made humans the evil ones. And we saw that. So even with the whole movie, even when she comes to the realization that she's a clone and she sees the other, messed up versions of her, it's further showing how messed up Wayland is and how like that
Mhm.
whole company, we're seeing how man is the evil ones. But Jean-Pierre Jeunet shows you immediately in the beginning of that movie with those Xenos. He's showing you it's been
Mhm.
constant the entire time. It's not like a big reveal like the way Prometheus did. Oh, no, wait, we thought we were good, but nope, here he is all crippled and old in the end of the movie. Like, okay. Like I didn't see this coming. Jean-Pierre didn't try to trick you with anything. He has been
Mhm.
like, this is a movie from the very beginning, and it's just evolving as we're going. But like, it's the same movie I'm showing you. I didn't try to trick you or say, got you, like the way
Mm.
Ridley Scott did with us.
Okay, so
Anyways.
then should we talk about the ending?
Get the ending. So the ending is the most polarizing scene in the entire movie. It's the
Yes.
reason why that's the scene that everybody always goes to when they try to trash this movie. So it's one
Mhm.
of those ones that I can try to defend and give my opinion, but if they still strongly feel about the way that they feel, that's where I can't argue with them too much. What I try to argue is you can't just use that final scene and write off the entire movie, which is kind of ironic because you and I did that
Because
with because we did that a little bit with Romulus. But I will defend it because in the Romulus end scene, it's so much deeper than just that final scene of Romulus, right? Them reusing and regurgitating so many callbacks is why I said that started losing a lot of points. And then when they went to an ending that completely copied this one, but butchered it even worse, that's why I say, okay, I can't take it as easy as I am with Resurrection, right? Like I can't give you that because Resurrection was all original and stuff that they did. So like there's a
Mhm.
limit here.
Well, people like to crap on the creature design. Let's just talk about the creature design first. And I understand that it looks kind of
Well, first you have to
goofy.
explain. First you explain what the creature is in case people haven't seen the movie.
Okay, explain the scene of the creature. I'm gonna pop up a
Okay.
picture of what it looks like.
Whoa!
What is that? Whoa!
Whoa! Okay. Okay, so the idea and premise is that she goes down to the queen alien, right? Because the fact that there's human DNA or whatnot in it, it would also mean that all the xenomorphs that are coming out are a little more mutated because they're not normal xenomorphs. So when she gives birth in in a childbearing form, not even in an egg, without a face hug or anything like that, she gives birth to this new, more humanoid version of a xenomorph. So you have this true mixing of humans and xenomorph blood that comes out to it. And what's great about it is that when Ripley's there, the xenomorphs smell them in her. So the instincts and whatnot is there. And what I love about this is that the xenomorphs have a language amongst themselves, as we established in an opening scene of Alien
Mm-hmm.
Resurrection, right?
Mm.
So when Ripley's there, they sense them in her, which is why they kind of leave her alone. When this one's born, it's more human-like than any of the other xenomorphs. So the fact that she's there and is looking at her, and then she's looking at the mommy xenomorph, it doesn't read the same language that the xenomorphs does. So already it feels like an outsider. It doesn't feel like them. So it already knows it's off. And that's why when it turns back to her and it goes and it kind of smells her or whatnot, it smells more like mommy than this one does.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. So that's why he just turns around and cracks the head right off her, killing the queen, xenomorph or whatever it does. It kills it because it didn't see it as a mommy. Like, it's that whole idea behind that of who you are and what you are is so symbolic of what the Ripley clone's going through, because
Yes.
finally she met something that feels the way she does, where we
Yes.
don't fit within amongst our own group and we're ostracized already, that we don't look right, we don't feel right, we don't know what we are, we don't know where we align, and we're basically bastardized versions of this that shouldn't be here. We're mutations, we're freaks, we're things that should have been casted and killed. Like, that's the way they saw it. So she finally found an understanding with this creature. So the whole idea of the final scene, I think, is so brilliant, that goes with the story. So if some people have an issue with the creature design, I can't fight and argue with you whether it's good or not, right? It could have been designed better. It's not the best looking thing, but I also like that the idea that it's so mutated and ugly, because that's what it's supposed to be. It's the physical embodiment of how she's feeling internally. That's what we're seeing externally by this creature. So that's why the design didn't really bother me. I get that. But like, the idea behind it made so much sense. So please, okay, let's get into your notes now. So that's what happens.
Yes, but the creature design in particular, it looks very, and this is why we had issues with Romulus as well, and then why I don't have issues with, especially after seeing Romulus, why I don't have issues with Resurrection's design. It looks z- like a xenomorph human hybrid, and not just a
Mm-hmm.
xenomorph human hybrid, but a xenomorph baby human hybrid, where it's ugly, but there's some sort of innocence and cuteness to its face, like the pure black eyes, like with a big, huge pupil type thing, and like the little nose. And it's supposed to look like a human baby with like this innocence and this like childlike, like it looks kind of cute, ugly. Like it is supposed to, like a little puppy almost. Like it looks like, oh, like a little ugly dog puppy. And so you're supposed to kind of
Yes.
have sympathy for it. And this way she has like sympathy for it. If it looked like the friggin' what we got in Romulus, like you're not going
Romulus,
to be like,
which
oh,
we'll
my
get
child,
into,
or
but
yeah,
yes.
which we'll get into, but like
Yes.
it's just, it has more of an innocence to it. You can see more of a human side. They're bonding. You can feel the human nature in it. And like, that's why this ending of this movie was so, oh man, I think I cried a little maybe, because I was just like, oh, it's so sad, because like this is my mom. Isn't this my mom? You smell like my mom. And she's like, oh my God, I can resonate with you. She, like, you think she's like thinking like, oh, I should take care of you. Like, oh my gosh, you poor thing. I feel like you feel like me. And then, but she's typical classic Ripley style. She's still in there and she knows always
What
will
she
she'll
has to
never,
do.
the greater good will never falter in her, even clone Ripley. It's just, it prevails
Correct.
at all times, which is just like so powerful, but such a
It's
sad scene.
which is why it still feels like Ripley to me, even though it's a clone
Yes.
Ripley, whatever. It doesn't feel like Stefan versus Urkel, right? Where it's like, oh, this feels like an entirely different character. No, it still feels like Ripley. I still see parts of Ripley in there, and that's what it's supposed to do. But it's not supposed to be 100% Ripley. It's not Ripley. Jean-Pierre Jeunet is telling you this isn't Ripley. Like, I'm not giving
Mm-mm.
you, oh, it's just clone Ripley, and we're right back to normal, like nothing happened, like
Mm-hmm.
swapping out Aunt Vivian. And, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like, you're not just
Yeah.
doing a swap and we're just not talking about it. You're
Yeah.
showing us all this stuff that's going through Ripley and even all that. So it's just fascinating. So in the end, right, it's there on the ship. She realizes that she has to, get rid of it. She can't keep it. She can't take it home. She can't have that.
No.
she can't because they're going back to Earth and like they're going to, you can't take that back there. So she has to do what she has to do. And in the stage of it being innocent, right, is when she ends up, cutting her hand, throwing the blood on the thing, and then
Hmm.
the suction of it getting before it's ultimately gets ripped out. It even looks at her and she looks at it and she even touches it like a mother to a baby, like, I have to let you go. And the poor thing is so innocent looking at her. So it's even
Hmm.
seeing her like, why would you do this to me? You saw such an
Hmm.
innocence in his eyes as it had to go. Like, why would you hurt me?
And
Like it never even
the
the
betrayal in its
betrayal.
eyes when it
And it
switches,
was
I'm like, oh shit, it's so
and it's
sad.
still trying to work its head. Like, how do you even have it in your heart to ever do this? And the fact that what's crazy to me is that the fact that this monstrosity has a bigger heart than a lot of the humans that we saw in this movie that were creating
Yup.
clones that had no heart. That's the point that Jean-Pierre is making here. Humanity doesn't have to come in humans. Humanity is us showing sympathy and love and passion towards other living creatures and how we treat them with respect. That's humanity. That's the point of all this. So even when we always saw the Ripley that hated synths, the synth was more humanistic because she was trying to be human. She was trying to be a good person.
Hmm.
All that was just fascinating and come to the head at the end. That's why I'm like, it made sense to me with the ending. You can only really tell me about the creature design. Like, that's it. But like, that's it. You're gonna say the whole movie's bad because of creature design at the very end that you only see for like 6 minutes, maybe?
Daniel and I kind of dismissed Alien Romulus because of the creature design, but not only because of the creature design, but the functionality of the creature, what was the purpose of the creature, like the internal workings of the
Exactly.
creature, what the creature represented, like
The
everything about
scene,
the
everything and the
scene,
scene, it's the
everything.
layers, it's the meaning, it's everything
Yeah,
about that scene is what I have an issue. It's not just the design.
right.
The
Everything.
design is the easiest thing for me to say, this is why I didn't like that ending scene, right? It's the easiest one
Hmm.
to point at, but it's all those other reasons to say, right? It's just the only one I can visually show you. I can't
Hmm.
visually show you the context of the scene and how it doesn't make sense. And you're putting it in there just as a throwback to Resurrection, like when it had no purpose, and you're even destroying the monster in the exact same way Alien Resurrection did, except Alien Resurrection gave you a better visual when it did it, and did all these other
Yep.
like. I don't even want to get into all that because that's hard to explain to somebody. I can only show you an
Yeah.
image of like a weird looking freak that for some reason looked like a Prometheus person that had no sense doing that. And I appreciate you, Jose. You're always sitting here trying to defend that ending. I get it. Like you almost feel noble that you're trying to defend it.
Yes.
It sucks for a reason. I'm glad you're overlooking a lot of it and you're saying, well, I'm glad you're trying to justify it. I appreciate that. Dude, I'm sorry. That ending sucked. I didn't like the ending. It made no sense. There was nothing to the story where it did anything because this one was Ripley and the story was about Ripley and humanity, right? That we're talking about. That's the
Yes.
story of Alien Resurrection.
Yes.
Existentialism. Where do we
Yep.
exist? What do we mean to the world in the grand scheme of things? Alien Romulus wasn't that, right? It was more about the character that we're following her character and her trying to get off, right? The planet and trying to find, humanity, trying to feel marginalized. Like the story and the meaning behind this stuff was very different. The monster that came out at the end was not symbolic at all of the struggle she was going through. That's
No.
why you and I had an issue when they subverted with the goo because the goo came out of nowhere. Her and the xenomorphs was the physical embodiment of the obstacles that she faced in her life. And we're now seeing this manifested that she now has to fight and go over. The goo now became Wayland again trying to go and trying to create and doing all this other stuff like about them trying to take over the humanity or the world, the universe, whatever it is, human control.
Whatever.
But that didn't have anything to do with the first half of the movie. Like that's not what Fede set up in the story. That's where I had issues with it with the second half so much because you didn't properly set the stuff up to know that Wayland was the main thing circling that was gonna be the main threat. They mentioned about how they mentioned Wayland and the controlling parts, and they were stuck on this, mining planet. I got it. But what the movie was about was these characters just trying to find freedom and escape and feel like people are gonna not feel like they were in the slavery stage, right? That's what the movie was. That's
Hmm.
why I had an issue when it went the other direction with Romulus because it was so promising. It sold us so
Yeah.
well on that first half, like beautifully. Like it was easily in the A range to me, that first
Hmm.
half. Then it started doing things where I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This is not what you kind of set up a little bit. You kind of changed tone on us. which is why it started going down a little bit for me on the scores. But then that ending scene, I'm like, this had nothing to do with
Nothing.
anything outside of just copying the Alien Resurrection ending. Like it didn't mean anything. I
Like
don't
no
think.
substance, no substance. There was no meaning. There was no, it was thrown in there just to like have it in there for like an action horror sequence. Which we already had three of them already, Fede. We don't need another one that like looks so stupid. Like you said, the whole story of Alien Resurrection, there was a huge payoff at the end because like what's the ultimate if you're like fighting within yourself, like am I human or am I more like animal, like what's going to block more of like just being like a xenomorph animal, like instinctual thing is like, and having compassion is becoming a mother and like having a child, and that's kind of mirroring like Aliens when Ripley had to become a mother again,
Mhm.
basically, and her motherly instincts kicked in. And then here it's the same thing, so it's kind of like tying things all together, not just for the movie but kind of for the franchise, but then
Yes.
still showing like ultimately it's the greater good for humanity. She still uses her alien powers to kill like this like closest thing that she'll have to like another child, kind of, you know what I mean? It's just like so deep. And the thing about Alien Resurrection too is like there's so much depth, but it doesn't beat you over the head with it like Prometheus does, like trying to be
Hmm.
so existential and trying to have so much meaning that they're telling you about the meaning over and over.
Yes.
Like Alien Resurrection's like if you can absorb what a meaning is underlying or whatever, then you're going to see it and you're going to feel it and it's going to be powerful, but it doesn't hit you over the head like, oh, by the way, humanity and all this stuff. Like it's just not, it does it
Which
in
I
such a
appreciate. I
natural way.
appreciate
Yes,
that
that's what I
more.
mean. Me too. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think it's like an ultimate alien movie. And I take the ending. I love it.
I do
I
too.
don't get it.
I
I don't
don't
get it.
stop the ending. That's why I say it's like the
No.
design, I got it and I understood what it did, you know? It's about all the stuff we're talking about. You needed this humanoid, xenomorph type creature. You need to see Ripley hitting that ultimate moment because even us, the audience, when we're watching it, even Winona Ryder's, remember, we kept watching Ripley because she seemed so cold. Was there enough human in her? Was there any enough compassion? Remember, they kept being the theme in the movie where even when you see her come back out and she helps, lift up somebody up out of the hole, you didn't know she was going to come back or not. That was the
Hmm.
whole
Hmm.
point. You didn't know she was going to help or not. That kept being the thing. So that's why at the final end, when you see her again, you're showing us, you're not telling us. She chooses humanity at the end. She chooses that side.
Yep.
That's why I defend the idea of the scene behind it. That's why I'm like, that's not the
Hmm.
same thing to me. I'm not sitting here arguing about creature design because that's all
Hmm.
subjective. I can't argue. Some people want to sit here and tell me that the one in Romulus is scarier. Fine. But the
Fine.
idea of the creature of resurrection was not meant to be scary because why would he have given
No.
it doe eye? Why would have done these human things if he was trying to scare you? He
It's
wasn't.
not.
He
He's trying to make
wasn't.
you feel sort of, it's like a roly-poly, chubby little doe-eyed baby that wants its mommy, and it's
Yes,
supposed to be. That's what the creature design is supposed to be. Yes, I guess the one in Romulus is scarier, yeah, creepier, whatever. But yeah, but
sure.
the creature design at the end of Alien Resurrection serves a purpose and there's meaning behind it. It looks like that for a reason. If you say you don't want Ripley to be like, oh, we gotta kill it, it's a xenomorph, oh,
Correct.
it's a Prometheus movie.
Yes.
No, you're supposed to sympathize for it and be like, look at this little.
Correct. Correct. It's not a chubby,
Yeah,
roly little thing. So
it
that
is.
so that's why I ask, right? This when we then turn to Romulus and I say, okay, so the point of the creation of the creature was to be horrific. So if that was the only point of this creature design was to be scary, like if that's your argument as for Romulus of saying that this is why this movie's better and this is, and whatnot is the creature design because it was supposed to be scarier and that scene was scarier than Alien Resurrection. Okay, so the final scene was only meant to be a final scare. Like that's the problem that I'm having. It didn't serve a purpose in the grand scheme of the story. Like it didn't do anything, unless if I'm missing it. So if there's people that feel otherwise, please tell us in the comments. Like clearly, me and Marie are missing something here because outside of me just seeing a final scare, there was no connection between the main character and this monster. She wasn't the mother of this thing. She wasn't tied into this thing. She wasn't questioning her placement or existence with humanity. I don't understand why she needed to face another obstacle. Her whole thing was like her not taking control, her kind of feeling, she finally became the badass. She took control of everything. She's the one that didn't rely on other people. And she started, we saw her character arc prior to that. I don't
Mhm.
feel like that scene did anything at all to me, which is why I had an issue
No.
with it. Then you throw in the creature design, and you and I are just saying, why does it look like a Prometheus? Why is it so big so fast? Like, none of this stuff is making sense to me. So now I'm questioning things, and all these things are running through my head that now I'm disattached from the movie because so much stuff is not making sense to me as I'm watching it. That's why I kind of need to rewatch it because maybe I'm missing something.
In Alien Resurrection, it's part xenomorph, part human, and it
Hmm.
has human being
Hmm.
qualities, okay? Mixed with xenomorph, like kind of 50-50. In the Resurrection, it's supposed to be part human, part creator, which I thought were supreme beings. I thought the creators were like the creators and they're stoic and they've blown their little flutes to travel over space, right? I mean, like, isn't that what the creators are? And then it's a little bit xenomorph too. So why is it strictly xenomorph personality and like inner workings? Like, why isn't it have any humanity? Why is it not like thinking with its brain and doing instinct and just strictly evil? Why is it more xenomorph? It makes no sense. This
It,
is why, again, resurrection makes
yes.
sense because you can feel the humanity in it because it's part human. What was happening
Yes.
in Romulus? Ma-
So and we even had a conversation with this, right? Because the girl puts the thing, I think her name was Rain, right? I think the character's
no,
name.
that Rain's the main character. K.
Rain's the main one. Okay, there you go.
K.
She puts the thing in her, right? And even though, yes, she's pregnant, the moms get it first. So she
Yeah.
should have had some kind of forms of mutation before it even went to the
Yes.
baby. But let's
Yeah.
just pretend this is magical goo, which just goes straight to the baby for some reason, even though they've never established, again, nothing's been established for me to buy this. You've never set anything up for me to know that's what it's supposed to be. So again, I'm asking so many damn questions at this point that I'm becoming disattached to the movie. Like this isn't making sense. Then it comes out with a weird little mouth where it's like suckling on her breast as she's, unalive, which already ridiculous, but okay. So I'm watching that thinking baby-like tendencies,
Yes.
but then it doesn't exhibit any other baby-like tendencies. So it's not acting humanoid, which it still was a baby in her, but maybe a couple months, I guess. So maybe it wasn't fully developed. So maybe it's more monster than it is human. Okay. But then you said the creators, I think engineers is what they're called, I think, right?
Sorry,
The
engineers.
engineers.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Creators, whatever.
But
Engineers.
for some reason, it has the face. So I know Jose's tried, arguing with us. Well, maybe it's more, like Colombian white stuff. Like maybe it's more pure or something. So it's like, okay, well, that's me assuming that that's the case because they never established anything that it was. So already I'm having a question mark because in Prometheus, when that got the giant starfish looking thing, the very basic looking xenomorph came out that didn't look like an engineer at all. So why does this one now have an engineer face? So it's not really acting very engineer like, but then
No.
xenomorph, where it kind of moves like a xenomorph, but then again, I don't understand why it's more xenomorph when it wasn't like a face hug or something and it's the black goo. So if you're trying to tell me that the black goo is more xenomorph, then why did it come out looking more engineer? Like I have so many questions about this, Marie. That's why it just didn't make sense to me. But in Alien Resurrection, I wasn't left with any of that.
The resurrection scene is shorter and much more impactful. Like the impact that that scene makes, I don't know, on me personally, I don't know. We're parents also, so we got to keep that in mind that maybe it affects us a little deeper. But if you're comparing movies at all, like Daniel and I have had to compare Romulus and Resurrection because of the endings, because it's basically a ripoff of the ending of Resurrection. So this is why we're using them as a comparison, because there's people who hate Resurrection but love Romulus. But it's like, how could you if it's like it took that exact ending and made it worse? So if you're comparing the two, Resurrection is like way top tier. Like that one's like way above Romulus because Romulus just threw scenes in just to have them, like just to have them.
Yes. And this is what's sad, right? Because I love Alien Resurrection. In terms of the films, I don't think it's as good as the first two films, but I don't think it's that far off, to be completely honest with you. But in terms of
Mm-mm.
fun and watchability, I watch it a ton. Like I love this movie. When I was watching Romulus, that first half of the movie, I was like, this is the better film than Resurrection. This is the better film. I can openly admit that. I'm really digging it. And it might even be more fun and watchable. That first half, I was so convinced this first half is beautiful. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. There's a little bit of like, hey, remembrance of other movies, but it wasn't full on callbacks. It wasn't dead on with the thing. Like it was being so original, which is what all four of these did. Resurrection didn't do a lot of those throwbacks or, hey, remember this quote line? Like It didn't do any of that stuff. It didn't do any of that cheesy stuff to me. Despite the fact people label it so much as cheesy, to me, cheesy is so commercial appeal of like, hey, like almost winking at the audience. Hey, remember this?
Mhm.
Everything I feared about Romulus that I told you guys in the chat did all in the second half. Dead in the eye, like, here's a callback. I'm going to use the exact same dialogue that we're doing. We're damn near looking at the audience as we turn back and say it. Like, we're doing
Mhm.
the exact. They copied exactly Resurrection, they even followed the other things with it. The breathing on the girl's face, like in part three, like you did so many callbacks that are not even just warped versions of it. Because if you would have done warped versions of that, I can live with that. I actually like it
Mhm.
when you do that sometimes. Not don't do it too much, but I like it
But
when you do that. That's really cool to me. You're dead on doing the exact same things, like almost shot for shot. Like that's so
oh yeah.
unoriginal to me.
Like there was shot, like even Rain just spinning with her gun, just like Ripley and Aliens. Like it was shot for shot, things thrown in just for the sake of it, which sometimes I don't mind. But like you say, if it's a wink, then it's like I got you, fans. But this was like you're saying, spitting in your face, like
Rapid fire.
this is it was just like giving it to you over and over, and it's too much of a good thing is a thing. It's real. Like there's too much of a good thing, and that's what Alien Romulus was until it was a really bad thing. It's just
And then the ending, I'm like, dude, how many callbacks do you need? Like, I've already been
oh my
called back
god.
9 times already. At this point, you're a telemarketer. You're calling back
Yes.
way too much and it just won't stop. Like, I'm eating dinner now, Fed. Please go back to what you were doing in the first half, man. This is why I was so like, because the first half was so damn brilliant.
Yeah, I
It was
agree.
exactly what I called it was gonna be. I'm like, Feda, you did it. You nailed it. You're that dude. Like, you served us justice. I'm so proud of this. And if I chew on it, and if the second half's great, I might even say it could be as good as the first two movies. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
could be God tier level of the Alien franchise movie. I felt that
Yeah.
strongly about it, which is why I got more upset as the stuff happened with the final hour because I'm just like, dude, too much, too much. That's enough Romulus talk. Let's get back on the great movie, Resurrection.
Well, my question for you was where do you rank it? Where do you rank Resurrection in your ranking of
Best
this
film
franchise?
or favorite fun films? That's
Well,
different.
I think you have to go with favorites because it's undeniable that there's movies that are better made. I get not better made.
Mhm.
See, now I don't know. The more we're
See,
talking about it, I'm like, wait,
it's
are they
made
better
well.
movies?
It's
Yeah,
made
it's made very well.
well. That's what I mean. It's like my complaint about it was the basketball scene. It wasn't even the ending scene. It was just the basketball scene.
Yeah.
It's not
I,
that big of a deal. Like, come
no, it's
on. I
not.
mean, it's hard because it's really unfair because you want to sit there and say, well, Alien did this and Aliens did that. It's like, well, yeah, but they came first. That's why when people usually say it's hard for sequels to be better, because
Mhm.
you always people can't stop themselves from giving credit to the originals that laid the foundation, right?
Comparing,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, so it's really hard. But this is why I love Alien Resurrection so much, is because it actually gave me a debate. It gave
Mhm.
me I can say Alien and Aliens, but Alien Resurrection is like floating right around there. So if those are A tier, this is definitely top tier to me. Like it's right there. I just say Alien is the better film out of all of them because of like I'm a sucker for like when it's like lower stakes, stripped down, there's only one and it's bare minimum. You don't have all the bells and whistles. Like
Intimate
it's
like
very intimate.
setting. Yeah, I like that too.
There's something about that I just really crave and all that, but it still says something if that's not the one you always go back to rewatch all the time, right?
Yep.
It
Hmm.
says something. I watch
Yep.
Aliens and Resurrection the most out of all of the Alien franchise, so
Yeah.
it's hard, man. Yeah. What about you?
I mean, like I said, it's my Halloween H2O. It's
So it's
I
your
think
favorite?
I think it's tied with Aliens as my favorite. And I think just because it has everything, it gives me everything in a movie. And even pulling at my motherly heartstrings, like it gives me absolutely everything. And it makes the xenomorphs scary because they're so intelligent. And I think it's the movie that respects the xenomorphs the most. So if you're
I
going
agree.
off of xenomorphs and if you're going off of even filming and the artistry behind it, like the scenes and like the cinematography, all that, the beauty, the glisten, all that stuff, I think it's like the best. I mean, I think it might be in my heart that maybe the best. And like Ripley, even though it's not Ripley, she's still Ripley, and her performance is so good that Oh man. If I go through everything I like about it, I can name more things than what I liked about any of the other ones.
I agree. So I understand there's some fans out there, right? And there's some that completely dismiss it. Like, man, if you like Resurrection, then whatever. I can't deal with it. Whatever it is, like, I don't care. You and I are we're passionate people. In case you can't tell by the podcast and stuff that we do, we're not we're logical people. I'm a very logical person as well, but I'm very passionate about stuff that sometimes passion will override logic. So when I watch things, I can feel things very much when I watch things, which is why when I watch Alien Resurrection, those little logical details that some people could bring up don't nearly bother me because I'm feeling so much out of Alien Resurrection that I don't feel with a lot of the other Alien movies.
Mhm.
I feel it in this movie. I see so many things, the idea of existentialism and what we are as humanity and whatnot, that just is so fascinating to me. That's such a very interesting concept on such a philosophical level, on a very macro level. And they address this so clearly that I felt that that's exactly what Ridley Scott did with the Prometheus movies. He tackled the exact same idea, but he
Mhm.
did it so obvious and so telling
Yeah.
us, the
Yeah.
audience, that it
So I
became so
said.
surgical. It became very medical. It became very
Yeah.
cold. And I felt
Clinical. Yeah.
none of the passion. I felt none of the humanity in that movie at all. It felt so clinical. Like, didn't it? Like, it
Yeah.
felt very clinical
Sterile.
to me. Sterile. It felt very
Sterile.
sterile to me that it's hard to watch a bunch of doctors and like theorists explain humans and what it means to be human. I'd rather hear from real people that are really living lives and feel the passion of
Yes.
love and humanity, like despair, loss. Like, that to me is the idea and the fact and the symbolism of humanity and what a human is. It's not the overall scientific idea of the neurological brains and the functions of a human. It's the
Hmm.
heart and it's the feeling that we have.
Hmm.
And I just thought Jean-Pierre Jeunet tackled that tone that we didn't even see in Alien. Alien felt more, sterile and clinical and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying Alien Resurrection took a different tone that I didn't see in other ones, and I freaking love that. And I don't care. I don't care if you like or you don't like the
Hmm.
character design. That's not my interest because it doesn't matter whether I did or I didn't like it. It's the story. It's the
Hmm.
characters. That's what matters about a movie. And he nailed it with this movie.
It felt so fresh and new, but so true to the franchise. It like I can't explain it. Like it felt
Hmm.
so I think respectful to the xenomorphs, which is why people love the Alien franchise. Well, it's and Ripley, but it was so like respectful of the xenomorphs, especially that it fit in, I think, so well with the whole franchise. But it gave you something so and just something also beautiful, and it's not as cold looking. See, I'm really about aesthetic and cinematography and lighting and
Me
color
too.
palette and everything in movies. It just hit those marks like through the roof, and like just the looking at it, you feel like you're when you're underwater submerged, you feel like you're submerged
Hmm.
in this movie the whole time, like not even just like the water scene, like you feel like it's wrapped around you, you feel like there's something about it where it's like you're in it, you're in the movie. And I think it's just because it's so much about humanity that it speaks to your soul, whether you know it, realize it or not. It's speaking to different deeper parts of you.
Is very artistic to me. So that's why I defend this. I don't care. This deserves to be part of the Alien movies. I don't want to see a retcon eliminated. Don't 86 this out of the franchise. I loved it. I don't care. I'm glad you're on Team Resurrection because we need more of you.
Oh, I'm on Team Resurrection hard, like way more than I thought I was even going to be. We want to know what you guys think below. Are we so wrong about Alien Resurrection? Prove us wrong because we're ready. Prove it. Prove it. Prove us wrong. Tell us why. Tell us why we're wrong because guess what? We ain't. You can find more of our content on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And you can follow me on Instagram at Marie Plays It All. Where can we find you, Daniel DeSangre?
You can find me at King underscore. What's that? That's right. Sangre. It's really just King underscore Sangre, not the other stuff. I just added that to involve it. Let's keep moving on.
Never stop playing and never stop defending the movies you love, even if it's not the consensus. Stay true to your heart.
And find your own opinion. Formulate your own opinion.
Yeah.
Don't go there with
Yeah.
preconceived notions. See what you like. You guys might love Romulus, which is perfectly fine. If you try to bash us in the comments saying we're a bunch of idiots, that's your right to say that. But I mean, hey, let
Hmm.
us have our own opinion too, okay?
Yeah.
We don't need to all love. We don't need to all agree to the same exact movies. It's okay.